Well, I'd introduce myself, but that would be redundant, so let's just get into it. Throughout this course, this ADHD English major has realized how important neurodiversity representation is for all readers to see, as diversity goes beyond racial and religious identities. Good representation leads to normalization of diversity, while neurotypical readers gain insight and understanding into the cognitive processes that differ from their own. Neurodivergent readers may come to accept their uniqueness through the acceptance of their representing character. If readers are unable to evaluate representation, discussions aimed at bettering society will either not happen or will occur with undeserving novels that properly represent diversity. For my senior research project, I have read 4 young adult novels featuring characters with 3 different neurodivergences. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon, Daughter of the Deep by Rick Riordan, Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, and A Mango-Shaped Space by Wendy Mass. Based on the representation in these novels and how I, as a neurodivergent person, would like to see myself represented in literature, I have formulated a 5-point criteria list for evaluating neurodivergent representation in fiction. First, author's credibility. An author needs to understand the neurodivergence they're writing about to provide an accurate representation. If authors are unable to base their representation on real-life experiences, they need to conduct appropriate research to understand it. I must be able to trust you with my voice. Second, uniqueness of neurodivergence. By definition of neurodivergence, the main representative character must have different ways of perceiving the world from other characters. Third, truthfulness of struggle. While many people thrive with their individual differences, neurodivergence still provides challenges for individuals. For this reason, the main representative character should struggle against their neurodivergence in some way. Fourth, uniqueness within neurodivergence. Either the main representative character must break stereotypes surrounding their neurodivergence, or there should be other characters with the same condition, yet who have a clearly distinct experience. And fifth, interactions with others. There should be a healthy mix of both positive and negative interactions between the main representative character and other characters in the story. Positive interactions lead neurodivergent readers to realize that they must be respected despite their differences. Negative interactions depict the reality of a neurodivergent person's lack of privilege, aid, and agency in a primarily neurotypical society. If handled well in their aftermath, negative interactions could add to a more realistic depiction of a neurodivergent experience. If these 5 points are met, the work is a credible representation of one neurodivergent experience. Out of the 4 books discussed here, 3 of them are appropriate representations. I found the representation of autism in The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime to be problematic due to the author's own confessed lack of research as well as the main character's depiction. For the sake of time, I will not dive into The Curious Incident, but if you ask me later, I'll be happy to fill you in. Using the other 3 books, I will illustrate how a novel can meet the 5 criteria I have described by providing examples from each of the other 3 works. First, author's credibility. When preparing to write A Mango-Shaped Space, Wendy Mass didn't know anything about synesthesia, which is a condition that causes one sense, like taste, sight, or smell, to be triggered when another is stimulated. In a Q&A, Mass describes her research process for Mango. She explains that she read many books and articles about synesthesia and attended meetings for the American Synesthesia Association. She met many synesthesiasts who openly shared their experiences, and some even read versions of the novel as she was working on it. Mass has proven herself to be a credible author by conducting thorough research before attempting to write about neurodivergence. Second, uniqueness of neurodivergence. In Riordan's Daughter of the Deep, Esther Harding's autism enhances her empathy drastically. She understands the thoughts and emotions of even animals. One of the most important instances of this is when she and her classmates meet a giant squid before a second battle with their rival high school. In an attempt to communicate with the squid, Esther dives outside their submarine with her friend Anna and a waterproof musical instrument. As Anna experiments with the different chords, the squid's skin ripples with different colors, as if he's trying to absorb a new spectrum of information. Esther uses these colors to interpret that the squid is a fan of puzzles. Using this information, Anna musically convinces the squid to come with them to face their rival. This squid ultimately turns the battle's tide in their favor. Esther's differences are integral to the outcome of the novel's conflict. Third, truthfulness of struggle. John Green's novel, Turtles All the Way Down, follows a girl named Aza who struggles with her OCD and often has thoughts that spiral beyond her control. When Aza sinks deep into a spiral, the narration style often changes from first-person past tense to second-person present tense. And here is a great example of that. You don't actually want to do this. It's just an invasive. Everyone has them. But you can't shut yours up. Since you've had a reasonable amount of cognitive behavioral therapy, you tell yourself, I am not my thoughts, even though deep down you're not sure what exactly that makes you. Then you tell yourself to click a little X in the top corner of the thought to make it go away, and maybe it does for a moment, and then your brain says, well, but wait. This style change accomplishes many things. First, the reader can experience the tightening spiral as the sentences lengthen, and Aza finds it increasingly difficult to stop her thought process. Second, the specific change shows Aza dissociating or mentally disconnecting from her psyche and surroundings as her own thoughts become too difficult for her to deal with. This change helps readers understand Aza's expression of her consciousness being forged in the smithy of someone else's soul. In other words, she feels like herself is not herself. The style change highlights how Aza is turned into the you in this example. This frequently happens throughout Turtles as Aza struggles to control her thoughts and not become them. Fourth, uniqueness within neurodivergence. In a mango-shaped space, Mia attends a conference with a number of other synesthesists and learns how other people are affected by their neurodivergence. Some see pictures when they encounter a word. Colors are different for everyone. One man married his first wife because her name tasted like peanut butter. And for others still, numbers have personalities. One man at the conference that Mia attends reasons that 8 is definitely a flirt because 3 is shy, 4 is rude, and 2 is like your buddy. A wide array of synesthesia effects is explored in this novel, showing the strong sense of uniqueness that is embedded in the condition. And finally, interactions with others. Early on in Daughter of the Deep, we get a clear example of how Esther is supported by her friends. Esther's anxiety causes her to struggle to cohesively explicate her thoughts, but Anna is usually there to coach her through those thoughts. Anna comments, I don't always follow everything Esther is saying. Sometimes when Esther talks, you just have to go on along for the ride and enjoy the scenery, suggesting that Esther's difficulty in articulating her thoughts occurs relatively often. Esther's emotions and thought process create a feedback loop. Struggling with her emotions muddles her thought process, which only complexifies her emotions until her brain is spaghettified. Esther can get so trapped in this feedback loop that she needs Anna to guide her through her thought process. By the time Esther's sorted through her thoughts, she's also calmed down. For her to not react to highly emotional and stressful situations would be bogus. For Anna to coach her through her thinking is realistic. Just like the characters discussed, all neurodivergent experiences are unique in their symptoms and their particularities. This uniqueness is why it's so vital to have appropriate representation in available media. To create a work of credible representation, authors of neurodivergent characters have responsibilities to conduct appropriate and thorough research, create a character whose differences uniquify them from neurotypicals and other neurodivergents, and support that character within the story. These responsibilities must be met for the work of fiction to represent neurodivergence appropriately. if that work does not represent neurodivergence appropriately. Discussions must be held to identify why the work is problematic. Good novels, such as the ones that I have discussed, help us in society to recognize the beauty and gifts of neurodivergence. Neurodiversity is something to be celebrated and not something to be condemned to the shadows, as we have with other minorities.